Hi there, welcome to this build of a 1950s futuristic looking flying wing. And as you can see, this is looking pretty advanced. We're almost there now. We've just got to pull this together and get it ready for the airfield, which I'm hoping to do in this video. And once that's done, we can get it to the airfield and just do some nice glides, or hopefully nice glides, and get it trimmed right before we send this thing away with the engine running. Just got to make sure it's trimmed right first, I think. Now, in this video, I've got the elevons to put in, we've got the servos, we've got the plates on the end, the fins, the terminal fins, and got to get the engine and the electronics done. But you can see, since I've covered this, I've cut out the hatches for the various bits of electronics, the servos, the battery and receiver, and this is where the fuel tank's going. But you can see the covering, the Asuka tissue that we put on over the laminating film in the last video is looking really nice, and I'm really excited with the finish of this. Now, we've also got this fin to put on, but this is probably going to be the very last thing we do, because it's so fragile. You just glue it on, and if it comes down on top of that in the field, it's going to get damaged, I think. So the last thing I want to do is put it on first and then put this upside down and just break it off. So that'll be the very last thing. Now, you can see I've got the hinges. We're using these Dubro small hinges in the ends of the wings, ready to accept the elevons. We put the slots in way back. Now, when I covered the wing, before I covered the elevons, I made sure that I knew where the slots were in the wing, and I put the hinges in. Now what I need to do is line these up and reacquaint myself with the slots in the elevons, because you can't actually see them. But now I've got the hinges in there, I can just line them up, and just all I need to do is just get a scalpel and just cut the tissue and the laminate. No, there's no laminating film, and there's just the tissue. Once I've got these the hinges in and together, I'm going to drill through and just peg them, and then cover over with a little bit of tissue, and that will hold them fine. There's very little force holding, sort of pulling on these, because it's quite a gentle model. So that will be absolutely fine. I've done other vintage models like that without a problem. So I'll get on and do that, and then we can think about getting the engine in, the radio gear, and these tips on. Right, I've got my 3 hinges in, and I've measured a suitable distance back to be able to pin these, and I've decided to drill a hole through 8mm, so that will come through at about there. So it's a good distance back from there, and the advantage of going as far as we can is that the wood gets thicker with this tapered end, and it will be a lot stronger the further in the wing that it is. But obviously we don't want to go too far towards the end of the hinge. So I've measured 8mm on each one, and I've just pushed my pencil in and just made a little bit of a mark where I know that I'm going to drill. I don't know whether those marks show up on the camera or not. And I've used my calipers to measure the thickness of the balsa there, and that comes out at just under 4mm. It's about 3.7 mil. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be setting my bench drill up so it drills 3.5 mil, and I'm going to drill through there, each one with a 2mm drill, and hopefully it'll go through the hinge, through the balsa the other side, but not break the covering. I'm then going to use this piece of cocktail stick, or toothpick. It's 2mm in diameter. I'm going to cut a piece 3.5mm long, and I'm just going to tap it in there. So I'll get the holes drilled first, and we'll see what that looks like. Right, I've now got all 3 holes drilled, and they were quite successful. I didn't go through on the balsa. You can see on the covering here, you can see it hasn't come all the way through. You can feel a little bit of a dimple, but you can't see anything. So what I'm going to do now is I've got this very short piece of cocktail stick that I am just going to tap into there to hold that that hinge in place. And I've just realised I haven't got my hammer, but actually that is pushing in. Let me just go and get my hammer. Now I've got this on a block just to hold it, and I've got my little peg, and we're just going to put that in there and then tap it in nice and gently. Now the trick is it's really fiddly this, but it is a good way of securing them. So we just, there we go, look, just tapped in there nicely. And if we turn that over, yeah, we still can't, there it is, still can't see that. So that has gone in really nice and secure, and that's nice and flush. So all I need to do now is just put a little dab of tissue over that. So I'm going to get the rest done, and when we'll get the elevons on and we'll see what it looks like. Actually, I should have said before I cover these with the tissue, I'm just going to put a little spot of CA on these just to hold them in. But to be honest, they're not going to go anywhere once they're tissued over, but it just feels a little bit better to do that. Right, well, I've got both sides done now. They're drilled, pegged, and I've put a drop of CA on the pegs, but they're working lovely. Now what I'm going to do is just cut some little circles of tissue. So I've got a bit of tissue paper, put it on a bit of card so it cuts a lot easier, and I'm going to use my hole punch. So what I'm going to do is just go around doing that and just cutting through and creating these small just little circles. There we go, and you can see there's one there, and I'm just going to put those on, and then a little bit of the polyurethane. I think I need to get a little bit of a better piece of card, something a little bit thicker, so that this, if I just double that up, that'll probably work a little bit better. Just need something for it to bite into. Yeah, there we go, that's certainly cut that a lot better. So I will get all these finished now and polyurethane. If I can pick up this piece, there we go. Now I think the best way to get these little cut circles on is to just wet the area that we want it to go, pick it up with the brush, put it down, and then just dab on top just to make sure it's covered. There we go. Right, well those elevons are all done now, and we're just waiting for it just to dry off a little bit where I put on the bits of tissue. So I've been spending some time putting in the servos and the servo plates. If I just lift this one up, you can see the servo on there, and they just fit on there really, need two hands to do this, really nice and neat. No drag or anything. There's a couple of screws going to go into that, and we've got the cables coming through here in the tubes that we put in when we built it. I haven't coupled the elevons because I want to make sure, I want to get the radio in and know where the centre is on the servos, and we need to set these up, I think it's 17 or 19 degrees, something like that, to provide some reflex to this wing. So what I'm going to do now, like I say, I've got the servos in, I'm going to put a couple of screws in, I'm going to get the engine in next, I think, and then we'll get the radio in. And I think these will probably go on fairly soon. I've really ummed and ahed about these plates that go on the wing tips, because they're very vulnerable. I'm concerned they're going to get damaged. So, I mean, do I glue them on really strongly, or do I glue them on just with a little bit of CA so they come off relatively easy if it comes down hard and doesn't rip out the rest of the wing? So I don't know. I think I'll probably just CA them on probably, and see how it goes. So I will get on and start to pull this together. We'll come and have a look once it's looking almost done. And there's probably one little thing I'm going to say about the engine, but I'll get the engine in first and we'll have a quick look at that. It's probably easier to show you now rather than putting it in the model first. The piece of tubing I made a few episodes ago, and a little clamp to clamp that onto this this muffler, the standard P.W muffler for this engine. But what I've done is I've used a little bit of heat shrink tubing just to put around the join here. This pipe, aluminium tube, was a little bit too big, and I put 4 cuts in it and clamped it to clamp it around this slightly smaller pipe. It was about half a mil too big, and it left just some very tiny gaps, and I got the smallest drips of oil coming out. Hardly worth noticing or worrying about, but I thought if I put a little bit of this heat shrink tube around here, that might help seal it. Now it'll certainly take the heat, I think, and I mean, it says on it, look, 125 degrees C, which should be fine for this, I would think. But we might find that the oil starts to affect it, or the diesel fuel, so we'll see. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. It's worth trying, and if it works, that's great. It'll help keep the model just that little bit cleaner. But what we'll do now is we'll get the engine clamped in. But you can see that it's quite a nice idea, I think. Just see how that goes. Now I thought it was worth just showing you how I've stuck these end fins onto the wing. First of all, I just held the fin up against the end of the wing. I removed some of the laminating film and the tissue, so it was bolstered to plywood. I held it up against the wing, and I just tacked it in place with CA. That obviously wasn't going to be enough, and one of the problems with this is that I should have put cap strips really on the end of on this terminal rib, because as the laminating film has shrunk, it's pulled in the rib, so it kind of bows, and there was a gap, and you could actually see right through the joint. So what I've done is I've mixed up some epoxy, and I've just used one of these toothpicks, cocktail sticks, and I've just put it in very carefully along the joint, particularly where these gaps were, and it's just filled in those gaps quite nicely, and some of it has run down. I've done the other side, and then I've just got a piece of tissue, and I've just wiped down there to get rid of the excess epoxy. But hopefully you can see that there's still a shine to that. You can still see it looks different, but I haven't done the final coat of polyurethane on this underside yet. So once this is dried, I will do that, and I'm hoping that that will all mat down and won't look any different to the rest of the wing. But obviously only time will tell. But I think that will fix on there quite substantially now. So I've still got the other wing to do, the other wing tip. But then I think we're almost finished. Well, I have really been cracking on with this now, and I'm dead excited because we've got this completely finished. Got the radio gear in, got the throws set up, and I've even got it balanced. Now you can see we've got quite minimal movement there, and I can dial that down if need be, and I've also got dual rates, so I can just step it up a few more millimeters. I think these are going to be quite sensitive, but we'll start off with that. I think that's about 5, 6, 7 mil, something like that, up and down, so it is quite small. I've got some quite large expo on there as well, just to start with. Now, as I said, I've got this balanced, and if you saw a video a few videos back before I started covering this, you may have think I'd lost the plot, because I put some carbon fibre tubes just in the underside of the wing and made these little legs that I could plug into to check the CG, because these now I can just plug in to the bottom of the fuselage, and we can use these to balance it. And if I just come round, we can see we've got 2 pieces of carbon fibre tube, one there and one there, and these are exactly on the CG as suggested on the plan. So if we get these feet plugged in, and since making these I've just put a little bit of balsa on the bottom of each one just to help with the balancing. Now hopefully this won't take me long to get done, but if I'm very careful now with the CG, oh, I need to bring it forward because of the nose wheel, and I'll just move the camera so you can see that. Well, as you can see, I've now got that balanced on those legs. The wheel is clear of the table, the underside of the wing is horizontal. We know those legs are exactly on the CG, and that is balanced perfectly. I am really pleased with that. It's just, I wasn't sure whether I was losing the plot making those legs and the holes underneath, but I think it has proved really useful. It's a lot easier than trying to balance it on fingertips, to my mind anyway. I don't like balancing on fingertips, but there is nothing holding that now other than just those two legs. And if I just touch the nose here, we'll see this just rock back, just to show that it was just on those legs. It takes a little bit of time just to get it set up in the right place, but it just shows it's not lurching backwards and forwards, and the underside of that wing is nice and horizontal. So I'm pleased that we've got this where it needs to be. So now I think we should take a look underneath and remove the hatches, and we can just see how I've set that up. But you can see how easy these legs are just to take in and out. Okay, so looking at the underside, we've got the hatch for the radio gear, just a simple latch. Now we're not having a switch at all, we're just going to take this off and plug the battery in. I'll probably have a secondary lead to connect the battery to the receiver, so I'm not taking the receiver out all the time. I can fix that in permanently, or at least with a bit of Velcro or something. Still need to move the aerials so to get the right orientation. Now the battery it's slightly smaller than AAA battery, and it's a 300 milliamp hour. Now hopefully you can see that. Now this should power this for a few hours, so it weighs 30 grams. Like I say, it's heavier than I was planning, but it is right on the CG. You can see the line of the CG here, so I could put a smaller battery in or a bigger battery, whatever really. This is 30 grams, the smaller one I had was 5 grams, but we'll see how it goes with this on the glides. Now I'm going to hold this with a bit of foam as well, but I thought I wouldn't put that in just yet. And we've got the fuel tank cover, which just unscrews, a little bit of foam, and then we've got the fuel tank in here with the lead and the foam pushed up here, just that little pellet of 9-ounce pellet of lead. So that's it really. It's all really simple and uncomplicated, which is nice. So all that we need to do now is get this off and get some test glides in. So let's turn it back over. Now regarding the weight of this, I always find it really interesting to see what things weigh and work out the sort of ounces per square foot. So if we just put that on there now, if we can balance that on, and we can see that is weighing 370 grams. Now that is without the battery, so if we add the battery on, we're coming in just under 400 grams. So like I say, I've got a smaller battery which I can use, which will still give me plenty of time, which is that one. So you can take your pick really, which is the best to use. I think they're both equally well. The only advantage of this is that it's going to be what, 5 volts or round about 5 volts. So it's probably better for the receiver rather than this single cell LiPo. Well, as I said, it is really good to get this finished, and I'm so pleased with how it's looking. And I can't wait now for a lovely calm day to get this off to a local field where there's some nice long grass and try some test glides. I am certainly going to do that before I let this go under power. And this pinch point underneath is going to be ideal for releasing it. It just feels really secure, really solid. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know how you'd be trying to release it really. I suppose you'd just be trying to launch it like that, but it wouldn't feel very good. So anyway, I'm going to draw this video to a close now, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing this finished model. And please come back and see how we get on in our test glides. And I feel quite nervous about that really, because getting these elevons at the right angle I think is going to be critical, and we need to do that when we're doing some test glides, trimming it out to get it right. Because if this thing won't glide, there's no point sending it away under power, I don't think. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed seeing this lovely finished futuristic ion. Thanks very much for watching.